Saturday's A College Football Podcast, back at you guys with another video. And today we are highlighting two freshman phenoms, two freshman prodigies, whatever you want to call them is not an exaggeration. We're highlighting their season from last year, and we're also going to talk about how their future could impact and shape college football for the next two, possibly more years. Now, we're talking about Ryan Williams and we're talking about Jeremiah Smith. I want to talk about Ryan Williams first. Ryan Williams was one of my favorite players to watch last season. He hit the scene possibly even harder than Jeremiah Smith when we're talking about right away. This guy, first game against Western Kentucky, I know Western Kentucky, had over 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. And right away, it was all over the internet that a kid at 17 years old is having this type of game in college football. And it is absolutely ridiculous. It is something we have actually never seen before. Like, we have seen true freshmen take over the sport of college football, but we've never seen a guy at 17 years old really take over the sport like that. And you're talking about a guy that just turned 18 a couple days ago. Like, he turned 18 on February 9th. This guy is a true freshman, technically, really, this year. Even though it might not say it, he's a true freshman this year. And he absolutely took the college football world by storm without a doubt. I think he has one of the best plays of the college football season, possibly the best play against Georgia. I think it's my play of the year where Georgia comes back, ties it up, and Ryan Williams has like 3 spin moves into the end zone with 2 minutes to go in that game. And I thought he was the best player on that field that day against Georgia as a 17-year-old. Now, I think the problem with Ryan Williams throughout the season, he got a little less hype and less involvement, less success in this Alabama offense. And I really don't think it is due to him. I mean, we're talking about a guy, yes, in Ryan Williams, that is a little smaller in stature. And there's no doubt his route running isn't perfect. But again, this kid was 17 years old last year. And I think the offense in Alabama, again, didn't really use him the right way in certain instances. And I'm surprised with a guy like Kalen DeBoer. I was very high into Kalen DeBoer coming into the year. I thought he did a phenomenal job, obviously, with Washington, turning that program around a little bit, getting them to the national championship. And I thought his creativity was great his last year at Washington. Again, was it easy with an offense full of pros? Maybe. But again, you're talking about 3 NFL wide receivers he got drafted, and you're talking about Michael Penix. Again, a totally different offense. But Kalen DeBoer's usage of Ryan Williams this year, I thought honestly was kind of poor. I mean, you're talking about a guy, like we said in the beginning of the video, a prodigy, a phenom, but not only that, a guy that could change the outcome of a game in one play. And I feel like towards the end, his play really tailed off. I mean, you're talking about from the Mizzou game on, you're talking about 53 yards, no touchdowns, 29 yards, no touchdowns, 36 yards, 1 touchdown, 37 yards, no touchdown, 53 yards, no touchdown, and then against Michigan, 8 yards, no touchdowns. I mean, this is why the hype kind of fell off. Even though Jeremiah Smith took off, again, Ryan Williams kind of took a back seat at the end of the year. People really knew how to play this Alabama offense. Again, this offense and this team was not really ideal for Ryan Williams, in my opinion, year one. Again, there could definitely be worse situations than Alabama. But again, it wasn't an Alabama-like offense. He was the best player on this offense by far. And again, there wasn't really much other threats outside of him. And he really just became a deep threat option for this Alabama team instead of a steady, consistent receiver. Again, very easy to bracket a guy when he's the only main threat in the offense. But again, like I said, Kalen DeBoer, I really expected to do a little more with Ryan Williams. I mean, again, line him up in the slot, give him screen pass opportunities, easy catches near the quarterback. And then you go into his quarterback with Jalen Milroe. Again, another thing I did not like for Ryan Williams. I mean, it paired up with the deep threat ability for Ryan Williams. Again, Jalen Milroe really excels in the deep ball. But again, short and intermediate, not only is Ryan Williams not the best route runner yet, but Jalen Milroe is not a short and intermediate passer. We see his inability to really dissect an offense. That wasn't the right pairing for Ryan Williams as well. Again, I think if Ryan Williams was in a different situation, committed to a different situation his freshman year, you could have seen insane numbers. But at the end of the day, you're talking about 865 yards and 8 touchdowns. You're talking about a huge game against Georgia where this kid was the best player in the field with players in the secondary like Malachi Starks. And I think the sky is the limit for Ryan Williams. Because even when we talk about Jeremiah Smith, again, who's an absolute phenom, absolute prodigy, and a little bit in this video, this guy's a year and a half younger than Jeremiah Smith. This guy could go into the NFL at 20 years old. Like, the potential for Ryan Williams is off the charts. And I think the potential is off the charts too, because again, you're talking about 865 yards and 8 touches. And again, the situation wasn't even ideal. I love Ryan Williams. Now, what I'm expecting for Ryan Williams next year, I really want Ryan Williams to take control of this Alabama offense. Again, it's really going to depend on what receivers they bring in, what running backs they bring in, how this offense shapes out. Again, we don't even know who's going to be the starter for Alabama, which is kind of crazy. I mean, we talk about Keelan Russell, Ty Simpson, Austin Mack. It's going to be a QB battle. We don't know. But I want Ryan Williams to be more consistently involved in this offense. I want to see him more in short and intermediate routes. I just don't want to see Ryan Williams have a deep ball or a huge play 2 to 3 times a game. I want to see more involvement for Ryan Williams in his offense and him really take over and improve route running, which I think is totally possible. I mean, again, like we're saying, 17 years old, and he had 800 yards and 8 touchdowns. He took the college world by storm, and I think, honestly, right now, he's being under-talked about, in all honesty. We've never seen anything like this kid. Never. And again, I really compare Ryan Williams, at least right now, to a guy like Jameson Williams. I think he's the best deep threat in college football at the time, like going into next season and even last season. I think he's the best deep threat, a guy that could change the outcome of a game in 1 or 2 plays, a guy that doesn't really rack up many receptions in a game. But again, like you're talking about his highest reception last year, it was 6 receptions against Georgia. So he's a low reception guy, but a deep threat that could really change the game. And I think there's no doubt sky's the limit for Ryan Williams. Sky is the limit. And again, it's just going to be how does Alabama team and situation pans out. Hopefully it is a little better than last year. But again, I don't even know, because even last year, Jalen Milroe was garnering the hype of a top 5 quarterback in college football. I never thought he was. This year, we don't even know who Alabama's quarterback is going to be. And it's going to be very interesting to see how NIL and transfer portal works out for these guys. I mean, I certainly don't think Jeremiah Smith's going to transfer. But again, a guy like Ryan Williams and an Alabama team who definitely isn't the same Alabama as 5-10 years ago under Kalen DeBoer. And if they have QB battles and QB questions, it's going to be interesting because this guy could garner huge NIL deals and huge transfer portal options. Obviously, would be able to go anywhere. So it's going to be interesting to see how this year shapes out for Ryan Williams. But again, I think you're talking about a guy that's like a year and a half younger than most true freshmen. And what he was able to do with 865 yards, 8 touchdowns, be the best player on the field in multiple games. Again, I don't think Ryan Williams is drawing enough hype in college football. And I am just excited to see what this kid is going to be able to do. Because, again, we've seen true freshmen in college football be the best player on the field. We've never seen a 17-year-old, a guy that was born February 9th, do what he did. I'm so excited for Ryan Williams again. He reminds me of a great player, like I said, in Jameson Williams with his big playability. And I think, like I just keep on saying, really sky is the limit for Ryan Williams. Now we get into Jeremiah Smith. Jeremiah Smith garnered unreal hype. I mean, as it is deservedly so. We're talking about a guy with 1,315 yards and 15 touchdowns last season. The craziest thing about Jeremiah Smith, he was able to come in with an Ohio State offense as a true freshman, an offense with 2 experienced wide receiver ones. We're talking about Carnell Tate, that's like garnering right now huge NIL deals to transfer out. And you're talking about Emeka Egbuka, a guy that could have went to the NFL draft last year as a 2nd or 3rd round pick. It's going to go this year as a 2nd or 3rd round pick in the NFL draft. 2 wide receivers ones with experience. You're talking about an offense with two running back ones with experience in Quinshon Judkins, in TreVeyon Henderson. And this guy was the best player on that offense as a true freshman. Now you're talking about 315 yards, 15 touchdowns. And not only that, we saw Jeremiah Smith come up alive in the biggest moments. You're talking about his best game against the number one team in the country in a college football game, in a college football playoff game, my fault. 187 yards and 2 touchdowns. Then you're talking about against Tennessee, 103 yards, 2 touchdowns in a college football playoff game. We saw this guy shine in the biggest moments. Again, as a true freshman, he won a national championship against Notre Dame. You're talking about to ice the game. They go to Jeremiah Smith on a deep ball. It was just so shocking. A wide receiver taking over an offense that was so talented and the trust they had in this guy. It was just unreal. Jeremiah Smith, there's no doubt my expectation the next 2 years for Jeremiah Smith to be the best player in college football. Listen, if it's not Jeremiah Smith, the best player in college football next year, I think it's going to be his teammate on the other side, Caleb Downs. I think Caleb Downs is extremely talented. We're talking about a guy in Caleb Downs that could be a two-way player in college football, at least to some extent, could get offensive work. Again, that would be interesting to use him in that regards. But Jeremiah Smith, again, his future is going to be kind of unknown, very similar to Ryan Williams, because these guys are going into situations next year where they're going into first-time starters. I mean, Julian Sayin, again, he's going to garner a lot of hype. It's going to be interesting to see with the departures of Ohio State after their national championship, how they pan out. I still expect them to be a powerhouse. I still expect them to be a top 5 team. But Jeremiah Smith was, again, you could argue he was a top 3 to 5 player last year. With all the departures in college football, this guy's going to be the best player in college football for the next 2 years. Again, I think a little bit of the hype with Jeremiah Smith was a little too much. I mean, you're talking about people who thought Jeremiah Smith was the best receiver in Ohio State history, wide receiver U, last year. That's just insane. I can't get on that board. I can't get on that board with guys like Jack Smith-Njigba that played 2 or 3 years. Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, you're talking about even guys back in the day. You're talking about Ted Ginn Jr. and others. I can't get Chris Carter. Like, the list goes on and on with Ohio State receivers. Again, do I think Jeremiah Smith is going to be the best wide receiver in Ohio State history when it's all said and done? Definitely a high possibility, especially with the start he has as a freshman. I don't think anybody has ever had that start in Ohio State history, but I can say that right now for sure. Again, one of the most historic and monumental seasons in college football. Just what he was able to do, win a national championship, be the best player on the field most games in a college football playoff game, and again, garnering 1,315 yards, 15 touchdowns in this explosive offense, being the number one guy was just unreal. And again, my expectation for him, be the best player in college football the next 2 years, which I think is extremely possible. That wraps up this episode of Sloppy Saturdays. We were talking about 2 extremely unique situations that we could argue we have never seen before in college football with these 2 guys. And Sloppy Saturdays is out.